Kevin T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time here with me today. And we're going to do a little bit of a follow-up on the whole Emilia Perez controversy with its lead actress, Karla Sofía Gascón. Now, I wasn't planning on making a follow-up. Of course, we always say that, and then we make a follow-up because, situations just continue to get messy. And this one continues to basically reek of desperation. Like, this movie went from being a potential winner for Best Picture, even though I never think it should have come close to winning that, to winning, well, maybe it'll win like a few awards like supporting actress, makeup, and song, to where I'm not sure if it wins anything. Like, this is the equivalent of someone left meat out and it started to stink, and people are debating whether or not it's still safe to eat it while they leave it on the porch and it continues to become more and more rotten. It's tainted beyond anything. But someone on X did bring up a interesting quote, and this is, by the way, the response I was expecting on why I believe the Academy did not actually act quickly and really haven't done much of a response to the controversy, because the movie itself and the whole situation just puts everything in a very complicated situation. Because, make no mistake, Emilia Perez was not given 13 nominations because it was a good movie. I don't think most people with two functioning brain cells would watch this and say, oh yeah, this is great. It was given 13 nominations for equity. Basically, this was hey, we can give a movie an Oscar that is in different languages. It's about minorities. It's about trans people. It's about persecuted people under this new administration. And we can send a message to the world that this is what the Academy wants to represent. And then it turns out their main star is a racist bigot. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. The things she tweeted, which you can listen to in the other podcasts, you can read about them, are not good. The most embarrassing one, maybe not the worst, but the most embarrassing one was where she tweeted that Selena Gomez was a rich white rat. Selena Gomez, for those of you who aren't aware, was Gascon's co-star in Emilia Perez. Now, that one, she stated in an interview that was not approved by Netflix that, hey, that one's not real. Which it's like, okay, but the one about Hitler just having an opinion of the Jews, the one about George Floyd being a hustler and that people see black people as monkeys, those are all still real though, right? But the Selena Gomez one, she would never say that. Okay, that makes things so much better. Well, Netflix released a new ad campaign and for a 4-year consideration, and it's got some pretty notable exemptions from it. I'm looking at it now, and I'm sorry that you can't see this because you're listening to the podcast. I'll try to include it in the video podcast, but it says 13 Academy Award nominations, Best Picture of the Year, and they're highlighting Best Director for Jacques Audiard, Best Supporting Actress Zoe Saldana, and Best Original Song Elma. You might have noticed they're not highlighting Best Actress, Karla Sofía Gascón. What's more, the pictures have no images of Emilia Perez. And I was reading a Variety article today that showed that if you went to the Emilia Perez website, they don't even have the title of the character on the website. That's kind of an interesting one, if it's true. I didn't personally double check that because it's not really what I want to talk about. Also, the Academy, which was going to bring back the 5-on-5 thing, they have announced that that's not going to happen. Now, they did not link it to the Emilia Perez controversy, but I'm sure that's why they're doing it. Their excuse is like, oh, we're just running out of, classic winners to say something. It's like, no, I don't think that's the reason, but whatever. Now, the reason I want to make this episode is because one of my favorite box office reporters who comments on X and social media, Luis Fernando, wrote something, and I think it's worth responding to. This is not the first time we've responded to one of his posts. I'd actually like to have like a conversation with him one day, to be honest, but I definitely thought this was strange. So he highlights this new ad campaign that basically has scrubbed Karla Sofía Gascón from the awards campaign, which, that was one of the things that I talked about. It's like, well, what do you do in this case? Because, you have your first, trans actress being nominated. This is the stock you were putting in this movie to show that you were inclusive, and now you are excluding her to save face. But that's the only reason anyone nominated it, was to have equity. Oh, and by the way, before we even read this thing, I should also mention Netflix has basically cut ties with her. They're not going to pay for her travel expenses or makeup expenses anymore. She's apparently not going to be at many of the award shows. She's still invited to the Oscars, but chances are she'd have to go on her own dime. So Netflix's PR team has definitely cut ties with her. Now, Louise is arguing that this was always the plan, that Netflix was using her for clout and threw her under the bus once it wasn't convenient. And I'm going to read the post. I'm going to share my thoughts. So he writes, exactly what I thought in my post last week. They never cared about what would happen to Karla Sofía Gascón. They let her go under alone, and as soon as she was over, Zoe Saldana, after ages of absolute silence, finally showed up, but just to condemn her own colleague once and for all. And now be made by their EP team front and center of the new Emilia Perez campaign, as if nothing just happened. All Karla Sofía Gascón needed was a true friend to make her see what was really happening all around her, and that she seemed like she was being used with no consideration all that time. But Karla had no one to help her out from that dark path she was going into, not even among her own EP team that was supposed to support her, but they never truly did it. That's why sometimes we as humans need to stop, put ourselves in first place, and ask ourselves if what we've been through is worth it. But more than that, asking ourselves if the people we are surrounded by and the expected rewards are really worth it. In this case, the self-examination could have saved Gascon's career. Now, there is some truth in this. I mean, one thing that should be noted is that Gascón and Saldana had the same PR team. But while Gascón is being sent out to do interviews and stuff, usually without coaching, Saldana has been more or less protected. Like, except to bring her out to condemn Gascón, she has not been given the interview. She's basically been protected so that she could win her award. She was like the most likely person to win. So there probably is a hint of truth to this. There is a hint of truth to this. And the fact that Netflix never did look at Gascon's social media posts beforehand, that they did not do some very basic things, probably showed that they did not care about her. Now, here's the thing. I don't think it was the intention for them to always throw her under the bus, because the thing is, this controversy has cost them Best Picture, probably. I mean, I don't know for sure, because I have a very hard time believing the Academy would give this movie Best Picture, even with all the nominations. It's like, for God's sakes, you have Conclave, The Brutalist, and even Wicked right there. You don't need to give Emilia Perez Best Picture. There are much better options. But, like, they might have done that, but now they're not going to do that now. If they were to give Emilia Perez Best Picture, the Academy might as well pack it in and go home, because they will just show how totally out of sync they are with the public, how they are truly in their own little bubble, that they are not aware of this. I mean, come on. But one of the things that's kind of annoying about a post like this is that, look, I understand that this was always a sticky situation. Like, how much does Netflix actually care about, trans rights and things like that? I would personally gather not much. I don't think they really care that much. Heck, they don't even care about making money that much. It's a very weird company when you get down to it. So, no, Netflix was never going to be an ally, and the fact that they did not properly vet the tweets and things like that shows huge carelessness. At the same time, though, we are talking about a person who publicly tweeted some very nasty things who has really shown no remorse for the things she tweeted, and in fact, now seems to be on the warpath. Like, this whole thing, people are determined to destroy my career, when it's like, no, you kind of did that yourself by writing these things. And look, I'm kind of in a complicated situation on this, because I do not believe that the movie should be tanking because of this controversy at the awards. I believe it should be tanking because it's not a good movie. I even shared support when, Gascón basically said, I am not going to rescind my nomination. I'm not going to step down. That's my work. I earned it. And my response was, yes, that is the absolute correct response. You are being nominated for the work. And what you do outside the work, in theory, should not affect anything. Although, let's be honest, it will. And also, let's be honest, she was never going to win. But this idea that, she just needed a true friend, she just needed to be protected. It's like, you know what? How old is Karla Sofía Gascón? Is she like a grown woman? Let me just look up real quick. How old is she? Oh, she's 52 years old. This is not a 22-year-old whose college tweets were coming back to haunt them. This is not like James Gunn, where he posted stuff years and years and years ago, and then it got dug up many, many years later, where he was not even that person anymore. Like, this is not that situation. Gascón is 52 years old, and she said some of these very horrible things a few years ago. Personally, I think a lot of people would probably want to know that these are the kind of things she was saying, because it's like, do you really want to associate with that person? I mean, look, the work is the work, and her work in Amelia Perez is fine. It's fine. Again, I gave this movie 1 star. I'm not a huge fan of it. But the thing is, if you as a person don't want to associate with her, you don't have to. If Netflix has decided she has become a hindrance to their campaign, then they don't have to pay for her makeup or hairstyling or travel lodges or anything like that. They don't have to do any of that, especially when the film is being hurt. Now, Louise did do a follow-up post and said, and for the sometimes people dig their own graves crowd, well, that's why you have a team around you. No one was supposed to be able to dig graves all by themselves. If their colleagues, support, and PR teams did the part one would expect them to do for a friend, colleague, client. Now, that part I completely agree with. Netflix totally dropped the ball, but I'm also kind of strange. I find it strange, and this is why the culture wars is so fascinating sometimes. Because it's like, I think most people would assume, like, hey, if it's a terrible person, like, you should definitely criticize them and everything. I mean, heck, Mel Gibson is still getting a lot of crap for things he did almost 20 years ago. And people are still like, why will you work with... It's like, it's been 20 years. I hope he's changed. I don't know personally, but, by the way, one of Gibson's biggest sins, in my opinion, was directing Flight Risk. Saw it, and it's like, that was such an average movie. Definitely disappointing from someone who should know better and has made better movies. But the thing is, nobody stops and thinks, well, maybe if someone had been like a friend to Mel Gibson, they wouldn't have let him dig this hole. No, he said some very vile things and was caught doing it. And the consequences were, in my opinion, appropriate. But because Karla Sofía Gascón is trans, we're supposed to give her that grace? Like, this should never have happened. Like, why should she be protected when she is this terrible? Like, that is a very interesting question, and this is why the cultural war is strange. This is why the Academy has not officially rescinded their invitation, because it's like, how do you rescind the nomination or the invitation for the first trans actress nominated for Best Actress, or at least the first openly one, because Elliot Page transitioned after the nomination in Juno. But how do you do that and not look like a jerk? And now Netflix is finding out, because now they're putting these new ads out where they don't show any pictures of Gascón. They're not highlighting that she's nominated for Best Actress. And that's only kind of bringing more attention to the thing. Like, where's the main star? Although I will say, highlighting everything on Saldana, she was the true lead actress in this movie. She was the true lead actress in this movie. So I'm glad that, she's getting that time to shine. But the situation is just such a mess. But do I feel sorry for Gascón? No. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, she did choose to say what she said, and she did choose to apologize the way she did. I mean, here's the thing. We don't even know if she reached out to Netflix or if Netflix reached out to her. I would hope that Netflix would reach out and say, this is how you apologize. But the fact that she keeps making statements, each one worse than the last, and then she did that hour-long CNN interview that Netflix did not even approve of, something tells me she was going rogue before Netflix could even really do anything. So this is just a mess all around. But did Netflix throw Karla Sofía Gascón under the bus? They kind of did. They should have vetted everything properly, but they didn't. And in that way, they did throw her under the bus. But in every other way, I think they're reacting the way that you and I would probably react. And if there is a shining spot, it's that Emilia Perez is not winning Best Picture at the Academy Awards now. And in fact, heck, for all you Ariana Grande fans, she might actually win her first Oscar as a result of this. Who knows? So anyway, that's where we're going to leave this story. I do want to remind you that I am writing a book about this year's Oscars. It's up for pre-order on Kickstarter. You can check out the pre-order link in the description below. And if you're listening to this podcast in a place where there's comments, I would like to know what you think about this. Do you think this is trans erasure, or do you think this is like a logical response to the situation as it is unfolding? Do you believe that the Academy has more announcements to make and how they change things based on this controversy? And hey, if this is your first time listening to this podcast and you like what you hear, let's make it official. We're available on Spotify, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, and every major podcasting platform out there that we could think of at the time, and maybe some more in the future. You never know. And as always, I'll see you at the movies. Take care.
Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Just a few more things. First of all, the names that you see on the screen, these are our Patreon and YouTube member supporters. And I thank each and every one of them. Their support helps me make exclusive videos for Patreon and YouTube members, as well as keep the channel running. And of course, is just of huge kindness to me. Also, don't forget to check out the iCritic-led podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, Deezer, whatever podcasting service you listen to. It is there. We definitely want to see you there. And hey, there's also other videos that you can check out. So, check out these other channels, these other videos, especially that one. I think that's a really good one.